It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Yesterday was Columbus Day. A lot has been happening over the weekend, rolling right into today. So let's get housekeeping out of the way. You can, of course, tune into AM 830 WCRN. You can also listen to the station streaming 24/7 like thousands of other radio stations do on the TuneIn app. So if you don't have that app, it takes seconds to download it. Punch in WCRN. You'll see our cool logo. Do me a favor, hit the like button. We know you're there, and then we're easy to find. You can also tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she will do that with no questions asked. I do stream, in this case, from the WCRN studios in Westborough, Massachusetts. So you can go to our Facebook page, YouTube channel at WCRN AM 830, or go to my social media, Joe Mangi Show. That's Mangi, the Joe Mangi Show. And that's Facebook, Twitter, or X, as they say, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to Rumble. So we have our own channel there. Multiple ways to listen, multiple ways to watch. So you can join the streaming if you'd like to. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That is our call-in line, 508-871-7000. Our text line is 617-297-8388. Text that like you would any other line. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time, and we try to incorporate it into the conversation. Today, behind the board flying today, we'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. So obviously, the biggest thing we've been watching since the weekend is the release of the hostages. Hamas releases the remaining Israeli hostages. So sure, the 20 live people who have made it home, and we're going to get the stories. We're going to get the firsthand experience as to how those hostages were treated, the torture they endured, the pictures. They had contrast, right, to some of the pictures of a healthy 20-something-year-old who was taken, forcibly kidnapped 2 years ago on October 7th, physically fit, handsome person, coming home and seriously looking as bad as the pictures from liberating the concentration camps in World War II. So we'll hear the real details, the firsthand accounts. Those will roll out. Meanwhile, Hamas hasn't totally upheld that part of the bargain, and that meaning the remains. There's still over 20 remains. They sent the remains of 4 hostages with the live hostages. But the remains of over 20 are still in their custody. And the deal was they all get returned. But there's no living hostages left in Hamas. So after that 2-year conflict, they released those 20 living Israeli hostages. And this is all under that U.S. brokered ceasefire agreement to Donald Trump and staff and Israel. But part of that, in turn, roughly 2,000 Palestinian detainees is part of the deal, which doesn't mathematically make sense because you're talking 20 people versus 2,000. And a lot of those, if actually most of those 2,000 Palestinians were convicted, were tried in a court, had a defense, had lawyers, went through a process, found a conviction, an actual conviction of their guilt, and sentenced accordingly. So they are, in fact, getting a get-out-of-jail-free card here. Now, Donald Trump has formally declared the Gaza war over. He joined international leaders in Egypt to coordinate the reconstruction and the new governance framework for Gaza. Talking about the peace board, right? and how this is going to look. Now, I'll get into something in a second, but a nation has the right to protect its citizens from violent aggression. Hence the sovereign borders. Israel military pressure helps secure and provided negotiation leverage. They're pretty good at what the IDF, pretty good at what they do. Mossad, probably the premier intelligence agency on the planet. So rather than open-ended war, this deal shows negotiation plus pressure, right pressure, applied at the right time, can achieve some results. So releasing thousands of detainees, and some of them militants, can risk future stability or instability, as the case is. The state must weigh security versus humanitarian calculation, right? That's all part of this. The exchange correlates with the principle that hostage taken is in fact criminal, not political legitimacy. Hostage rescue must be anchored in legal, not ad hoc framework. Plus, you're using Hamas uses techniques that are just condemned in war by the Geneva Convention. They were using residential homes to store weapons and ammunition. They used hospitals and first aid centers to do the same thing. They used their own, for lack of a better term, citizens as human shields. Now, the U.S., as well as Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar, they played this central role. It's also a very high-stakes use of American soft power in a foreign conflict. So far, it's working out, but it could have blown up in Trump's and in America's face at any time. And the deal may encourage, right, to deter future hostage taken depending on how the agreement holds and is perceived. But the bigger issue that we got to look at here is, see, the deal is understood that this is the first phase of this ceasefire. Full implementation is contingent on further steps like disarmament, governance, and then, of course, reconstruction, where I'm assuming we'll see a Trump Tower in the Gaza beach eventually. Israel will partially withdraw from certain areas in Gaza. In humanitarian corridors, they're going to open. And the powers now to be, Egypt, Qatar, U.S., etc., are going to make sure that those trucks of supplies make it to the people. Because Hamas has had no problem starving Palestinians. It didn't care. If you weren't part of Hamas, you were a tool. Either you were there to be butchered like a Jew or used as an asset. Now, Hamas is to return those remains of those hostages. Now, depending on which article you do your research in, at 28 bodies, 4 got returned, 24 are still there. So far, only a few coffins have been delivered. From live coverage, as I watched them come home, I saw it was 4. Israel is going to release 250 prisoners serving long sentences and another 1,700 detainees arrested during hostilities. So what's the ratio there? But the U.S. and some other countries and forces will monitor this truce. Trump had convened a summit in Egypt with Arab and Western leaders to chart Gaza's reconstruction and future political structure. But I want to get into something because Hamas, breaking today, says it will not relinquish arms or control of Gaza despite agreeing to the Trump broker deal. But let's tackle that in a second. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Mark is waiting patiently on the phone. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Well, I keep personally myself as a Trump supporter. I'm not happy to see Ken and Barbie back in the mix, meaning Ivanka and Jared, that is his name, Kushner. I'm not happy to see either one of them back in the mix. I don't trust either one of them. And, I'm beginning to think that this, her husband, Jared Kushner, I've been looking up over the last few months on the internet. His family has very close ties, from what I understand, with financial ties, business ties with Goldman Sachs. I mean, what is he? Their man in Damascus, Kushner. I mean, every time anything has to do with the Middle East, there he is. There he is back again.
Well, that might be true, Mark, but he's also had played a very instrumental role in Trump term 1 with the Abrahams Accords, and he is Jewish, and that does make Trump a guy with Jewish son-in-law and Jewish grandchildren, and I understand that. But the man was a very successful businessman before Trump ran for office, before Trump became president first time or second time. So I'm not sure if I have a huge problem with that. Apparently you do, but I'd have to say you'd have to point to something specific as to why that would be a problem. And maybe there's a listener who can that I'm unaware of. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So my issue here, and we're against the clock, but a spokesperson for Hamas, Hazim Qassam, he declared that the group will not give up its arms or surrender control over Gaza, even though it has formally agreed to that ceasefire and hostage prisoner exchange deal brokered by Trump. This stance raises serious questions about the implementing and disarming of governance terms in the border agreement. I think we all kind of knew this was always going to be a problem to get Hamas to disarm and then give up power. Like every other human being on the world, when you get a little power, you don't give it up easily. We have to take our first break here in the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. We'll take a quick break and be back in 2 and 10, folks. Stick with us.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Did you know the U.S. spends over $13,000 per person on health care? More than any other industrialized nation, yet ranks last in life expectancy and preventable deaths? And your average primary care doctor, they're juggling 2,000 to 3,000 patients with just 15 minutes or less per visit. That's not care. It's diagnose and adios. You deserve better. Tune into Wellness Wave Radio every Saturday and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., where biochemist and health coach Phil George breaks down the science of nutrition, mental clarity, and biochemical balance so you can stop surviving and start thriving. Contact Phil directly at philgeorge@charter.net. Your wellness journey starts with knowledge, and it starts here.
I'm Lee Gaudette from Gaudette Insurance and the Gaudette Insurance Show. You're listening to Radio Central, AM 830 WCRN.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment, Tuesday afternoon edition, Joe Mangiacotti Show, AM 830 WCRN. Of course, biggest thing in the news right now, or one of the biggest things in the news right now, is the fact that these hostages, the living hostages, have been returned. If you watched any of this over the weekend, it could have been very emotional. It was a lot of times. The condition that some of these hostages being returned in, they do not look healthy. They look very sickly. But the details are starting to flow out because now we're getting victim firsthand accounts. And it wasn't like there was a lack of food from Hamas. Hamas, as part of the torture, would eat in front of the hostages. But now we've got this Hamas person, Hazim Qassam. Now, do we actually know if he's authorized to speak on behalf of Hamas? Did he have anything to do with brokering the deal? Is he just coming out and taking some kind of stand? But see, Hamas's refusal underscores the power ultimately to enforce these terms. Symbolic agreements without enforcement, they're going to collapse. Agreements that demand disarmament, like in this case, must be backed by credible enforcement mechanisms, not purely volunteer compliance. Can't trust Hamas, period. But now, this isn't all an Israel thing. This is a Trump America, Qatar, Egypt, etc. So if they don't follow through on the deal that they signed, the deal that they agreed to, it might be a gloves off, no holds bar response. And here's the thing. Israel or America or Egypt or Qatar, for that matter, do not have to worry about killing a hostage. They're no longer in the presence. So I think Hamas needs to think this through very, very carefully. A ceasefire is hollow unless structures exist to compel compliance, punish violations. If adversaries can agree now and then defy terms later, future deals lose all credibility. They mean nothing. The U.S. and Israel must show they can hold parties to the commitments they made, and not just paper those. So if Hamas retains control, the transitional governance in Gaza, it's effectively illusionary. House of cards, it's just, they cannot be in control. They cannot be armed. In this situation, it does mirror past conflicts where disarmament was promised on paper, but never enforced in these post-conflict zones, right? And Hazim Qassam, whoever the hell that is, insists that Hamas rejects any imposed terms concerning disarmament or governance transition that ignore its core demands. Now, remember, even if Hamas was cooperating, it will take years. They have tunnels bigger than the New York subway system. They have underground offices, hospitals, quarters. They've got tons of ammunition and weapons, stashes all over. Remember, Israel in 2005 said, you know what? Here's the keys to the joint. Take it. Well, they still provided electricity and water to the Gaza Strip. And the Palestinians, who still don't have a state, they're still not a country, elected Hamas. So they had all 2005, 2006, part of 2007, before they started launching missiles and attacking Israel. Then they put the blockade up. And they had multiple opportunities to just be normal. Now, after this ceasefire, Hamas forces have already redeployed in Gaza, conducting some internal crackdowns. In other words, targeting suspected collaborators. so they can hold on to some authority. But Hamas has publicly reaffirmed that its military wing will continue to exist and that internal policing is necessary to maintain order. So it does look like there's still some, few bugs to work out here. But the hostages, those living, they're home. They're safe. And October 7th, I would be very surprised if anything like that ever happened again. I think Israel is fool me once. But of course, they were already living under the mantra, never again. And this was the worst attack on the Jewish people since World War II. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Phil George from our weekend shows. Hey, Phil, what say you?
Hey, Joe, a little bit off topic. I thought you may find this interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So at one time, I was a Democrat, and I drank the Kool-Aid, and I believed that the Democrats, were for the poor and for the working class, and I believed the Republicans were for the rich. So I bought the Kool-Aid. Obviously, I've been enlightened since then. But I found out an interesting statistic. Do you know that every state in America does not charge property taxes to homeowners over 65 years old, except for 5 states? Do you know what one of those 5 states are that still charges
Massachusetts.
property? Yeah. And you get the other 4. Do you think they're red states or blue states?
Oh, no, New York, California, Minnesota, Illinois, Connecticut, Illinois,
and New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey makes sense, yeah.
But see, the whole point is, I mean, if they really out, because obviously, other thing that's odd, Joe, I've noticed. You remember at one time you go into a place and it said senior citizen discount? Remember those?
Sure.
You don't see those anymore. I don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean,
just when you can start to look for them, they disappear. Well, for me anyway. They're probably still out there. I don't know. Maybe you got to ask for it, Phil, right?
I know you usually that you would see that stuff, but a lot of people over 65 obviously living on Social Security,
Mm-hmm.
and they're raising the property taxes every year, and I'm sure a lot of people wind up losing their homes because they can't afford to, to pay the property taxes.
So
but,
let me inject something there, Phil, because this Mandami, when he talks about all this free stuff. Now, one of his plans here is because about 25% of the real estate in New York is already under the city's rent control. That they've said, look, these properties, you can only raise the rent 3% a year. Now, that really was a problem, especially when under Biden's term, we were at 9% inflation. So they couldn't keep up. So now what's going to happen, because Mondami's plan is to then, because he has the ability to do this as the mayor, is freeze to eliminate even the 3%, meaning that these landlords can't raise the rent at all. So they're already at a point, Phil, where they cannot maintain the building and pay the property taxes. So the maintenance is suffering. They can't hit the property taxes. So his plan is to freeze that, eliminate even the 3% they're allowed to go up now. They can't go up at all. It's only going to take a year or two that then the city starts to repossess all that property. They'll take it for tax delinquent. And then the city of New York will own over 25% of the residential real estate in New York. That's his plan.
Right, and I think you've seen too the biggest exodus from the states. Massachusetts is one of them. Even I think it's in the top 3.
Yeah,
because they're moving out of all the blue states, and I heard they're already exiting. I saw there was a real estate agent that was saying people were bidding huge amounts to get out of New York City. They're leaving now.
Yeah,
it looks like he's going to win.
Yeah, and so they're kind of getting, well, the getting is good. right? They're getting, well, maybe they could still get market value for their property, and it's starting to switch to a buyer's market, by the way. So they're getting out because they don't want to have to sell when literally every other person worth, 7 figures or more is selling, because they're just not going to have their wealth taken away, confiscated, or eroded by taxation and policy. So they're getting out now.
What's that?
They're getting out now.
Yeah, well, they can.
Yeah.
Other thing that was interesting, I heard them call Trump so many times an anti-Semitic, and I found that so bizarre because his favorite daughter is Jewish. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, these whack job protesters are also calling Jewish people or those that support Israel Nazis. Yet they're the ones who are yelling from the river to the sea, which translates to the extermination of the Jewish people. So you go figure. They're just, how do you debate with somebody who's that ignorant of history and what's happening? Seriously, how do you do it? It's not even rhetorical. Please tell me the secret. It's absolutely, it's mind numbing, Ted, you want it? Yeah.
It reminds me of that song, "The World is a Ghetto," because that's where New York City's going.
Yeah, well, I get down to New York on a fairly regular basis, and not, because I need to, but yeah, it's kind of. I mean, there are homeless people. It doesn't matter the neighborhood anymore. You know what I mean, Phil? It doesn't. There are certain parts that were always very tree-lined, beautiful parts of New York, but there's homelessness everywhere. There's feces on the ground, needles on the ground. City is just, we need the modern day Rudy Giuliani to get in there. So we're getting closer. Madami, he looks good. You still got Cuomo in there and Curtis. Do you think it's a possibility there's an upset and Curtis takes it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So we're going to have
a red beret if he does.
A social. Yeah, we're going to have a socialist mayor of New York. Good news for conservative, common sense people. It's limited to New York City, but it could give a lot of confidence. Well, Phil, thank you for the call. I'm against the clock. I do actually have to reach out to you after the show, so expect a call from me. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Hey, text line 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Stick with us. We'll be back 2 minutes, 2 seconds, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We've got another damp and breezy day out there, so we stay on a weather alert. This is actually the third day of impacts from that slow-moving nor'easter. Temperatures today will be in the 50s. You'll find skies finally clear tonight, and we make our way into a partly sunny and dry Wednesday forecast. Temperatures tomorrow, by the way, up around 60. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
What if your body already knows how to heal? It just needs the right support to do it. Bioregulatory medicine is a total body and mind approach to health that works with your body, not against it. It's a safe, gentle, drug-free, and proven medical model that supports your natural ability to regulate, adapt, regenerate, and heal without side effects. Whether you're seeking to restore health or prevent illness, bioregulatory medicine offers a smarter path forward. Take control of your health with knowledge. Visit brmi.online, home of the Bioregulatory Medicine Institute, a nonprofit global leader offering a powerful free library of trusted resources, articles, podcasts, videos, and more, all at your fingertips. Visit brmi.online. That's brmi.online.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. It is October 14th, so a happy birthday to Charlie Kirk. And the president, about 4 o'clock today, Donald Trump plans to award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom this afternoon. And remember that earlier Congress unanimously passed a resolution designating today, October 14th, as National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk, to memorialize his contributions, his civic engagement, and of course his support and demonstration of free speech. He was shot and killed a little over a month ago on September 10th while delivering he was actually kicking off his college tour of the, Prove Me Wrong that he's been doing for well over a decade now. And he was assassinated at the Utah Valley University, a killing that just has catalyzed in conversations and political violence. It has prompted free speech on campuses, and it certainly has brought some unity nationally as well. But that will happen this afternoon when the president awards this. And Trump has been a little more reserved in actually doing the Presidential Medal of Freedom than some other presidents have. So I think it carries a little more weight. And obviously, if you'd like to discuss the lack of the Nobel Peace Prize going to Donald Trump, as he just brought the 8th war conflict to resolution on the globe, they lost credibility when they gave it to Barack Obama after he got elected for the vibe. Literally, that's what they said. We're giving it to him for the vibe that he's created.
Joe, getting the Nobel Peace Prize is like being awarded a bobblehead.
It pretty much. It really is. It's like getting the prize out of the cracker box. It has no meaning whatsoever. You've lost your credibility. They just couldn't bring themselves to acknowledge it. By the way, and I'll go to the phones in a second. By the way, I mean, Hillary Clinton, Schumer, Bill Clinton, right? I mean, you had active, right, Democratic agents and activists and politicians, and have to give a nod. Gave the nod to Trump, saying, good for the oath. If it wasn't for Trump and Trump's people, this wouldn't have happened. Some can't bring themselves to it. The backhanded without mentioning it by Obama and so forth. Well, they tried to say building on the formula of the previous administration, which is absolutely laughable. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. No text so far today. It's interesting. Usually I get some that I can't talk about on air, but none came in. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Hi, Joe. You're just starting to head in the direction I was going to bring up as a topic, but before I do, yes, how do you get Hamas out of Gaza? Good question. And I think we're going to be talking about this for months.
Let me answer that with another question, Ken. What's stopping Israel, Qatar, Egypt, and the United States from making it a parking lot?
Well, obviously, those outside of Israel aren't going to do it directly.
Well, they've all signed on.
But then again, they can defund them.
They've all signed on. So this deal was done with United States, Israel, Qatar, Egypt, Yemen. They all signed on. So if Hamas tries to screw the deal, they're dealing with the Middle East now as a collective force. And that, happens. And it would be, an international police action at this point. And it wouldn't just be the America. No, it might be our guns, our ammunition, our fighter planes. But Egypt has bought just about every single piece of military equipment Egypt owns came from an American contractor.
But there better not be boots on the ground that are American.
Don't need it.
working it out. But
Don't need it.
That's all going to play out.
IDF will take care of that. They have boots on the ground.
Well, I want to cross over to the reaction to the peace agreement announcement late last week, and you made mention of really the old Democratic Party reaction versus the 21st century reaction.
Yeah. I want to hear this because that's a good point.
Because how Hillary responded in her words, I believe it was on MSNBC, were far different than Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we're in the mess that we're in the 21st century. It's not all Obama's fault, but he is the leader of the gang of bad, the best way I think to describe him, when you consider all that's going on throughout the country and the world for that matter, where we have Marxists and Islamists creating havoc everywhere, particularly in the United States. And instead, with Hillary, when I heard her announcement, it gave me wow, this is back to the 1990s when people were respectable to their opposition party when they deserved it. You know, she had a calm voice. She said Donald Trump. And it's like, oh, that's when we were more peaceful, isn't it? Not on Obama, because he never mentioned Donald Trump's name. And after he gave a backhanded approval of what was happening, then he went on a tirade about what the left needs to do. And that's how we get
The
it.
man can't read the room. Yeah.
No,
Look,
no, not a room. Oh, he's reading the room all right. He's given the
you mean
go ahead,
Barack?
Antifa. Keep going, Antifa.
Yeah,
He wants
but
violence. He wants
I get that,
destroyed.
but I don't think he's reading. When I say he isn't reading the room, the pendulum has begun to swing, and this whole thing, because Antifa right now, and a lot of the people who are behind the money, Ken, have already started to pull back because Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, under Trump, instructing them to do so, are now treating them the same way they treated organized crime. They're going after the money. They're going to trace all this money. So Antifa's losing its engine because the money was the engine. When these people show up, all in this same dress and garb and protection and masks, in a U-Haul truck is already parked there, loaded with weapons and things to be used as weapons. When somebody shows up with a box truck with these very expensive gas masks and handing them out, and these people, you get it? The money is drying up because nobody wants to have their fingerprints on the money anymore. Ted, you wanted to...
You know what you were saying about the RICO statutes?
Yeah.
How they're going to go after them the same way they went after other gangsters in the past.
In terrorist organizations.
It's interesting because those words are reflected in what the left is saying now. Antifa doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's an imaginary organization. What does that sound like?
Yeah.
Does anybody remember?
The Godfather? Yeah. No, they're seriously doing that. Well, the same people, Ken, who are trying to tell us Antifa doesn't exist. I mean, we have actual pictures of them holding the Antifa handbook. We have them speaking at Antifa rallies and functions. We've got PayPal, right? There were ads that were posted to be professional protesters. Again, now that the full force of a legitimate DOJ and FBI are focused on the crimes committed by the Antifa participants, it's just time now. And Obama might think, remember, he's been doing everything, and I mean everything, including his third term through the proxy of the husk of Joe Biden, from his Martha's Vineyard basement or his Hawaii, whatever mansion. Just like he said in that interview, I'd love a third term if I could be home in my sweats and, I speak into a microphone and it comes out on stage. I don't need the Air Force One and the Beast and all that pomp and ceremony. But yeah, and that's what he got with the Joe Biden administration.
You think there's a Kenyan flag in that basement studio?
Well, you should be proud of your birthplace. Can we say that? Ken?
There's no indication that he's accepting The L
No,
his side is losing. You make a good case.
no.
But while this is being announced, and what are they doing? They're announcing a No King Part 2 protest.
Which didn't take in the No Kings thing in the first place. That didn't take, right? It didn't take. It's a bad choice of marketing because we kicked the king out 250 years ago, right? We haven't had a king here since old George. Like that doesn't make any sense. And if you want to really look at it, the oligarchy seems to be the Democrats. I mean, with the exception of Elon Musk, maybe one other billionaire, but anybody over like worth 10 billion or more, take Elon Musk out, they're all leftists. They're all funding the
Hey, he
left.
used
When
to
you
be
get to
part of their
Google
clique.
and Mega, huh? He was.
Musk was part of
He
their
was
clique.
part of that clique. Donald Trump was a Democrat, guys. You got to remember this. So was Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy. But they've come around, and the left or the Democrats don't understand. You need a serious course correction. Stop being so petrified of the AOCs and the squad and all of these people, because for the most part, all those people they're so afraid of on X now, and unless now Blue Sky, I think, is where they were gone, or whatever, Instagram, they don't represent the meaty part of the country at all. You're talking about a few people, most of them in their parents' basement. But that's about, it's so silly. Ken, another thought before we got to let you go?
Bernie Sanders and AOC is the party, and they want violence now.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if Bernie Sanders wants violence per se, but AOC doesn't understand the level she's trying to play at, in my opinion. She doesn't have the intellect to get it. She's not quite even sure what the chambers of Congress are or the branches of government. But she gets out there and she says stuff very confidently sometimes, but she needs to be called on it. And I'd love to see her be the nomination in 28, because I'd love to see her in Vance or her in DeSantis debate on a stage. Ken, thank you for the call. All right, folks, we're against the clock. We're going to take our third and final break here, and we'll do that. We'll come back with the fourth and final segment on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I want to remind you that the show is actually turned into a podcast when I get off the air, and it's posted up at Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to it then. All right, come back in 2 and 10.
Tired of rush doctor's visits? Are you finding it tough to get a doctor's appointment? And when you finally do, are you in and out before you know it? Did your doctor take the time to ask about your diet or exercise routine? Did they order the right lab tests? And how do you know if these are the labs you need and how to interpret them? Discover the freedom of ordering your own lab tests. Phil George, clinical biochemist and health coach, can guide you on which blood tests to order. Customized to your personal health goals, Phil's extensive training ensures that you receive the best advice on interpreting your lab results and understanding their implications. Plus, by ordering labs on your own, you'll pay far below insurance prices. Looking for an alternative to conventional medicine? Phil George can help you navigate your health journey with a personalized approach. Just email Phil at philgeorge@charter.net for a free consultation. Your health and well-being are within reach, and it starts with the right guidance. Don't miss this opportunity to take control of your health. Reach out today and embark on a path to better health with Phil George.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response: Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
All right, folks, welcome back here for the fourth and final segment of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. You can join the conversation with the time we have left together. So, Pennsylvania arson, by the way, that defendant in the Shapiro, the governor's mansion case, got sentenced. Cody Balmer, 38 years old. He pleaded guilty to multiple charges tied to that April arson attack on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's mansion. Well, him and his family and security personnel were actually inside the house. And under this plea agreement, he was sentenced 25 to 50 years in prison, and he wouldn't be eligible for parole in the beginning of April of 2050. So I would say they adequately sentenced this person. No one was killed, no one was hurt. But think about this. He broke in to the governor's mansion. Well, the governor and the governor's family and even the governor's bodyguards are in the house, and he sets it on fire. That either took absolute cojones or stupidity beyond belief. Even in politically charged cases, the legal system held that the perpetrator, they held him to account under this very serious felony status. And the case underscores the need for strong protection, deterrence against attacks on government residents. I mean, now you contrast this, Democrat governor, contrast this with the Jamoke who packed up his murder bag and made his way to Brett Kavanaugh's house with the intention of murdering him for the political reasons of altering the court's makeup. Pretty much fits the definition of domestic terrorism. But as they moved in on the trial, he decides he's a she. And the judge actually notes or denotes the transgender process here and gives a much lighter sentence. How does that work? Why does that work that way? He had guns, duct tape, rope. I mean, he had this planned. The deterrent was they had, because of Antifa protesting literally on the street outside of Kavanaugh's house, they had marshals posted. And the marshals deterred this kid. It seems a pretty big discrepancy. What was it, 6 years or something? I don't have it in front of me. Big difference. You try to kill a Democratic governor, 25 to 50 years. Try to kill a conservative justice, Supreme Court justice. Oh, yeah, slap that wrist because you're a transgender. Not lifelong transgender. Not somebody who knew he was a female in a male body when he was 8. This came a couple weeks before the trial. Just pointing it out. Go ahead.
Charlie Kirk made a really good statement.
Usually did. Yeah.
But this one applies. There's a big difference between empathy and compassion.
Yes. Agreed. And when grievances move from speech to action, and see, that's why, remember, we were told for a long time now, words of violence. See, it's algebra, guys, because if words are violence, violence are words. And if violence is words, then when they conduct that violence or perform that violence, it's just speech. It's protected. That's what the court has continually had to deal with in the last 6 years.
But it's peaceful demonstration are the words that drive the First Amendment.
Exactly.
Peaceful demonstration.
And despite, was it Don Lemon or Cuomo? I think it was Cuomo who now infamously said the stupid thing on CNN when he still had a job there. Where does it say peaceful protests are guaranteed in the Constitution?
In the First Amendment.
Yeah. It's in black and white. Yeah. But when grievance moves from speech to action, it triggers the criminal justice response. That's the way it works. When you cross that threshold, when it goes from speech, peaceful expression of your point of view or your beliefs, and crosses to action, it does trigger the criminal justice response.
Well,
Violent dissent is not protected.
In the common law, there is a very thin line between speech that is provoking and speech that is warnings. You know, like they say, you can't say fire in a crowded theater. But if there's a fire and you're warning people, that's different than trying to clear the room so you can take out your opponent.
Yeah. The court has dealt with this many, many times over, and that's how we get the current laws. But they're being tested, they're being pushed. And I still see a lot of discrepancies depending, again, on who the victim is. Now, this character, Balmer, he claimed mental health issues complicate, but did not absolve that responsibility of those violent acts. But we had the judge who decided because that guy with Brett Kavanaugh decided to transition, that they should get a break. I don't understand that. Please, if you understand that, call up at 508-871-7000. Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, how you get to that and can justify it. And so additionally, he's going to want to serve his sentence, his short sentence, in a female prison. But in the case of Obama here, a heavy sentence sends a message that political assassination attempts should be met with harsh penalties. In assassination attempts on Supreme Court justices should be too. The state must balance transparency so the public knows what's done, in secrecy, protect sensitive security protocols, of course. But there's a big discrepancy in this. We also, again, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Boston street takeover. You guys watching this go down last weekend or the 5th? And then they attacked the police. So talking about protest violence, right? We had the bikes that hit, you know, the Zakim Bridge and then down under the tunnel, all those stolen bicycles and screwing up traffic. But then last week, in October 5th, in the early mornings, there were a crowd of about 100 people, more than 100 people, blocked intersections in Boston South End at Mass Ave and Tremont. And they engaged in some pretty violent activity.
Well, it's a riot.
Yeah. A street takeover.
A riot.
Throwing fireworks, poles, all kinds of projectiles. Now the police responding, right, in their cruisers, of course. And there was a one marked cruiser was actually set afire and damaged. Boston police arrested 2 young men from Rhode Island, Julian Bowers, 18, and William Cantwell, 19. And that just is a side thing. We see this all the time at these Antifa riots and protests, and people come from all over. They're not, all the people there aren't homegrown. They're not in their neighborhood. People come in from across state lines. So they hit this Cantwell and Bowers on charges including assault on officers, malicious destruction of property, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct. The police say, look, this attack was premeditated and part of an orchestrated takeover event. It wasn't a spontaneous gathering. They never are in these cases. Spontaneous gatherings, people aren't dressed for combat. People don't have weapons. People don't have masks to hide their identity. They don't have hotels paid for. They aren't from other states.
They're professional rioters.
They are. Agitators is what they are. The fundamental principle of government is, of course, lawful protection of its citizens. Organized attacks on police challenge the state's sovereignty. It just does. These events blur the line between protest and lawlessness. So maintaining public order is essential to protect our liberty and our freedom, and to protect those that really are exercising peaceful speech and peaceful protest. How many times, and I made reference last week on the board, or maybe, I guess I haven't been on the air since Thursday. There was the board last week where all these journalists not connected to mainstream media went to the White House and talked about the fact that they show up to work where Antifa people are threatening their lives as a normal daily function. And one of them put it out to the other members of the media from the big networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, all there, said, I have never seen any one of you. As a matter of fact, I've never seen anyone from your organization on the streets in Portland or in Minnesota covering this stuff. And then there's Andy No. Remember, Andy No was beat within an inch of his life by the Antifa people for covering the story. But he didn't cover it as a propagandist or an agent of Antifa. He covered it as a straight shooting journalist. And they still attacked him and kicked him around. If takeovers are coordinated via social media in advance, they require anticipatory enforcement and deterrence. What happened in Boston is unacceptable. I think Mayor Wu needs to course correct as well and reevaluate her stand on a lot of things. But folks, it's going to bring us to the end of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, this becomes a podcast when I get off the air. So check it out, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Spotify is a good place. Google Play, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. Go there all, joemangishow.com as well. If you want to see any of my posts and or shows. That's going to wrap up today's edition, guys. Joe out.